Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. This time around we are on the Pillar of Bone playing as the Empire against the forces of the Vampire Coast. And I chose this matchup to cast actually because of one specific reason, and that was because in this match I really got to use my Bright Wizard to really shut down opponents' artillery, and I really want to show just how effective Lord of Fire, and especially Fireball, can be against artillery pieces. Now it is worth mentioning that it's actually good against just about any artillery piece. I think even a Rune Lord cannon, a shielded dwarf cannon, can be taken down in a single overcasted Fireball, whereas I think a normal Fireball is enough to take down artillery pieces for most other units. But one of the big things with Empire against Vampire Coast, of course, there tends to be an artillery duel or some sort of artillery engagement. I think this is a match that generally favors Empire to begin with, because simply put, Vampire Coast does not have quite the units up to snuff. Empire artillery is generally, I think, a tad better. Empire has much better ranged options in my opinion, just because of their mobility. Certainly, say handguns cannot put out the same amount of damage zombie handguns are. In my opinion, zombie handguns are currently overtuned, and they're definitely a bit OP. But at the same time, Empire could kite you. So, in this situation where Empire has these tools, it's kind of very Empire. It's a very Empire favored matchup, I think, or at least slightly Empire favored. Regardless, as you can see here, for my army, nothing fancy. I did bring Boris because he can heal and he's got his full kit, everything from Deadly Onslaught, Foe Seeker, Midland Rune Fang, White Cloak of Ulrich, Hold the Line, Crush the Weak, all that good stuff. Alongside him, a Fire Wizard who does have, or Bright Wizard who does have a Fireball, Kindle Flame, Cascading Fire Cloak for that defense, Flaming Sword of Ruin because you want magic damage in case your opponent brings ethereal units, which my opponent definitely did here, and then good old Power Stone just to get extra wounds of magic. And in this matchup we started with very low magic, so it's actually going to be rather useful, I think. For the rest of my build, front line of Spearmen with Shield, Swordmen with Shield, Sigmar Sons, various troops like that. Secondary line composed of 4 units of Spearmen, or of Crossbowmen, sorry. Sterling's Revenge here, and these Silver Bullets back here, providing 2 bits of AP, both stocked so that my opponent cannot simply whittle them down with Mortar Fire, Deck Gunners, Queen of Asses, as you can see, who's already teeing off on my poor Sigmar Sons here. None of those units are going to be able to really shut this down prematurely. 3 Spearmen are covering the flanks, and then finally we do have 2 units of Knights of the Blazing Sun out in the periphery. I was hoping actually to get a test. I know it was requested that I do some Demigryph action, but I haven't been able to get a matchup where I think they're decent. I definitely do not think this is one of the matchups where we want to be running Demigryphs. So, but I am keeping it in mind. I will try to get one within the upcoming few days. For my opponent's build, he decided to go very melee-centric, but he did bring the Queen Bess, sort of like Chaos will sometimes bring a Hell Cannon to try to force you to come to them. But you can see Queen Bess takes 1 hit from the Fireball and immediately loses roughly 2,000 HP, which is pretty nuts. Now for the rest of my opponent's build, front line of veteran up zombie pirate deckhands. They are backed by a single unit of depth guard to chew through chaff. Tide of Skuld as backup, 2 Sirens for the fear, terror, the melee attack debuff, all that stuff. 2 animated Hulks for some AP. The Night Terror Morngulls over here, who are the Regiment of Renown. They've got monstrous melee stats, like way better than normal Morngulls, but they do have Rampage, which is the downside, which is why they're also a fairly cheap Regiment of Renown relative to the base unit. And finally, somewhere we do have the Fat Lady, Celastra herself, who is here with her Night Summon, Arcane Conduit, the Rotting Promethean Summon, and Tide Call, which is an okay spell against cheap chaff. Unfortunately, Kiss of the Deep is kind of trash. Now for my opponent, though, you can see the second Fireball hit, and Queen Bess is down. 2 shots, and my opponent's 1,600 gold investment right here is effectively off the table. So huge win for me. That with 2 overcast Fireballs, I probably could have just used a normal cast for the second one. This is like 18 wins of magic. I take 1,600 gold off the table for my opponent. So huge win for me. But yeah, Celestra, guys, if you're running Lore of Deep, unless you really don't have anything else to use your gold for, Kiss of the Deep is kind of trash. It really doesn't add up. Even if you spam, I don't even think it adds up if you spam cheap spells. And honestly, you probably won't be spamming the cheapest spells. You're probably going to be using Denizens of the Deep and stuff like that. It just doesn't tend to deliver in my experience. And maybe that's just me. Maybe some of you guys have had some great experience with it, but it really hasn't. In my opinion, it's just not worth it. Regardless, my opponent is now pushing forward. He doesn't really have a choice. You can see the balance of power is already shifted decisively in my favor. We're going to fast forward here a little bit as we push in and close the ranks and close the distance. A bit of a misplay here on my part, actually, was the fact that I waited a little too long to get my crossbow engaged. I could have been firing a little sooner, and because of that, unfortunately, the crossbows are going to be in a position where they can be pressured. Where you can see one of the Celostra summons is going down, but is then my opponent decides to cast Rodic Prometheans in the front line instead, which cancels or reports this summon in the back. In the meantime, unfortunately, some of my knights here did get bogged down by these annoying zombie pirate deckhands, and they're taking some nasty losses, so definitely some misplay on my part. Certainly the game is not over despite my opponent's heavy losses. I've kind of just YOLO'd aggressively here. My opponent, though, using that Fear Terror, using those powerful melee units like those Knight Terrors and the okay animated Hulks to kind of chew through my chaff screen here. But I do use a Flaming Sword of Ruin to try to middle down these Sirens a little bit. Probably should have used it on my range, to be honest, and just melted them with ranged fire. Over here you can see Knights of the Blazing Sun do actually abort their charge, which really sucks. I was trying to get a rear charge in on the depth guard, but they crumbled before I could get into position. So now they're out of position. I really should have tried to avoid that. Over here, my opponent does get a lovely summon of the Damned Knights Errant, who are now in a position to roll over my crossbows, my Silverland's Revenge, and all these troops. I do dive in the Bright Wizard to tie them down, but unfortunately, Flaming Sword of Ruin is on cooldown, and I do not have any magic, really, to use. So my opponent is going to get some great value here from these Knights Errant. These guys already up to 11 kills, just running amok in the backline. Actually, a pretty cool ability, and a pretty nifty one at that. But we are starting to whittle them down, and we will be able to work them over time. My opponent here making a slight comeback, but you can see Boris is kind of anchoring things here in the middle. He's got his buffs going down, his debuffs perhaps more importantly going down, which is just dropping these animated Hulks. You can see their stats are completely in the dumpster. 60 melee attack, 50 melee defense, just absolutely worthless. Getting torn down by spears, getting torn down by Knights of the Blazing Sun. Certainly the Rotting Prometheans are here in good quantity. This is probably one of those overtuned summons. Rotting Prometheans, very underpriced in my opinion, for just 13 wounds of magic, and they last for a very long time. But regardless, Boris is now walloping on Celostra, and we are slowly but surely chewing through her. Of course, that low winds of magic affects her as well, so it's beneficial for me in that sense that as well, that my opponent isn't able to get as many spells off as he would probably like. Elsewhere, you can see some of my Knights of the Blazing Sun. I definitely had some miss micro, getting them caught up on things like Zombie Pirate Deckhand, so now they're way out of position, and my opponent is now rampaging through my backline with the annoying Knight Terrors. But the Silver Bullets do extricate themselves from the fight, get clear, and start shooting at the damn Knights Errant. Of course, these guys do not crumble, but they are so low on HP that they shortly fall thereafter, and at this point, it's just a matter of time. You can see Flaming Sword of Ruin has gone down, making these Sirens very, very weak. Keep in mind, Stormland's Revenge are actually very respectable melee combatants, certainly no pushovers, and now with the Silver Bullets in position to fire, these guys are in for a world of hurt. They just really cannot hold up. They get a rear charge, and that's just going to cause a very quick crumbling for these guys. In the meantime, the Knight Terrors here are trying to do some work, but the Knights of the Blazing Sun coming in for the team, getting a rear charge, and forcing these guys to rampage, which is a huge win for me, because now that they're rampaging, I'm going to be able to escape with my Sterling's Revenge, escape with all my shooting, and then launch a devastating crossfire on these guys from all directions. And Night Hunters, while they certainly do, or Night Terrors, not Night Hunters, Night Terrors, while they certainly do have 30% missile resist, that is nowhere, and 40 armor, that's certainly nowhere near enough to defend against this much missile pressure. That is really Empire. That's the reason Empire just dominates the match. You've got so much missile pressure they can put against you, because Empire missiles are relatively cheap. It's one of the high elf benefits as well, though high elves don't have cheap AP missiles. You can see Celostra here, despite her best efforts, she is going to go down. At this point, my opponent does choose to GG out. So the match, not necessarily too much to say. Good effort to my opponent. Recruit IPL Verisha here. He kept fighting after he lost 1,600 gold worth of units. Honestly, I know that some players sometimes you snipe their piece they're kind of counting on, and they'll quit the game immediately. So well played, and very good effort. And actually made a serious headway against me, because I really kind of got cocky after taking out the Queen Bess. But if you play factions, if you have a faction that has Lore of Fire, Queen Bess is incredibly susceptible to that. If, in fact, you do not have Lore of Fire, but you do have Amber Spear, that's also not a bad choice. If you need to snipe down Queen Bess. Amber Spear is less good against the cannons because it doesn't home, so sometimes if you're just even the slightest bit off, you're going to miss the cannon and not get a kill. But Amber Spear can do okay against artillery pieces, it can do okay against the cannons, and it will do very well against Queen Bess. I think 2 shots on an Amber Spear are also enough to kill Queen Bess, so I might be incorrect there. It's been a little while since I tested all these things. But those are great choices. Of course, counter battery fire from our other artillery pieces, not bad. Otherwise, things like way stalkers, very good against Queen Bess. Definitely, if you're going in to get to a matchup against the Vampire Coast and you want tools to get rid of their artillery, if you're really worried about artillery and you've got Lore of Fire, use it. There's very few factions that don't have magic missiles that can somehow crack these artillery pieces. Beastmen, it can be a little difficult because you don't have super mobile, easy to dodge with casters to get your Amber Spears off. If you put them on a chariot, they're kind of a big target for deck guns and carronades, but for most factions, and I think you're in a decent spot. Like Norska, if you're struggling with Norska and your opponent is bringing lots of artillery against you, honestly, bring lower fire. It's not a bad choice. If you're Chaos, you might be seeing Queen Bess trying to shut down your Chosen or whatever you're trying to bring, Chaos Warriors or something. I don't know what you might be running, but Fireball, kill Queen Bess in like 2 casts and be done with it. Bring Archeon. Like certainly you won't be able to get that high angle fire, but you can get Archeon in there. He's got an all-in-one caster and melee lord. And, you can nuke Queen Bess real quick, and it applies to other artillery pieces too. If you need to snipe down carronades, if you need to snipe down mortars, if you need to snipe down units like that, it can definitely be very useful. As if you're looking for a build for Empire, this is honestly pretty good against the Empire Coast. If your opponent goes wider, you can just scatter your infantry a little more and deflect more attacks. And if your opponent has lots of shooting, you can kind of outshoot them or kite them with your crossbows. Use Knights of the Blazing Sun to pressure the backline, force your opponent to play a bit more static than they would like. Use the Fire Wizard to snipe out key artillery pieces and stuff like that. For my opponent's build, my recommendation would be to probably not bring Queen Bess against Empire, because Empire, even if I didn't bring Lord of Fire, Empire has lots of abilities to kill Queen Bess pretty easily. I'd probably invest in something else. Carronades I don't think are bad because they can trade blow for blow with Empire cannons and deal with Empire artillery. What else? I probably wouldn't bother with this many monsters infantry. I'd probably just try to go with lots of chaff. Perhaps try to bring a bunch of zombie pirates with pistols, so you can push at your opponent and sort of be firing as you're approaching, and so your opponent has to pack up their crossbows and try to run away. If you force a breach into your opponent's front line with your chaff, and force the chaff screen to find a kind of retreat, and then you're able to push through with your zombie pirates, you can then kind of just keep pressuring your opponent. Mortars, if it's a map with some cover, might not be a bad idea. Queen Bess, actually, if the map offers some degree of cover, isn't necessarily terrible, but just because of the fireball risk, I personally wouldn't bother. I'd recommend bringing mortars. For the big threat from Empire, the biggest threat from Empire is going to be the crossbows, and perhaps handguns if your opponent decides to roll with that. So you will want tools to crack those, and I think mortars might not be a bad choice, because Empire doesn't really have too many tools to kill them efficiently. Fireballs, I guess, but as long as you're hidden behind cover, cannons won't do the trick. You can always zone crossbows away. Regardless, well played to my opponent. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you found it a bit informative and learned some tricks or tips on what not to do or what not to bring, and perhaps as Vampire Coast, or what to bring to counter certain units. So I do hope this was helpful. I will be trying to get a Demigryph replay in as soon as possible. I did actually have a few from before the patch drop, but those are a bit dated now. So I'm going to be trying to get some new Demigryph action in. And yeah, hopefully we'll get to see that soon. Like I usually say, if you guys want to leave any comments, any criticism, any questions, any requests, as usual, don't hesitate. I will do my best to respond and get back to you guys as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Over now.